It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome back to the Talk Center. Last segment, we had word of the day was conflict. And the discussion that we were talking about is, should we endorse the emergency financial manager or should we fight him? And we had on the show, we had Steve Hood, my good friend, host of Detroit Wants to Know. And we also had John Philo, who's the attorney with the Sugar Law Center, who filed the lawsuit, the federal lawsuit seeking to declare the law unconstitutional. And it was a great discussion having John on the show because it gave us a chance to really understand the legal issues that are underlying in the case. And it's really one of saying that the law is unconstitutional because it usurps the right to enact laws on behalf of the EM, going beyond what was necessary from the standpoint of financial issues. Well, this segment, I want to dig in and I want to analyze that issue kind of without John being here. I've got Steve Hood back with me, host of Detroit Wants to Know. Good morning, Steve. You've got to hit your on button there. The little red button that says on.
It's on.
You got that. The other button says cough. If you want to cough, you hit that button.
Oh, okay.
Now you're on. You're good.
Now I'm on.
Now you're on. See, Steve is a TV personality, so he doesn't have the on-off cough button expertise that is necessary. Good morning, Steve.
At least it doesn't say turn your head on, off, and cough. Hey, Ken, I want you to know, I just got back from a college tour. I took my youth group to all the historically black colleges and universities on the East Coast, and we hit the Ivy League schools. So it was amazing. But as we walked through Washington, D.C., as we went through the King Monument, it was, I'm thinking about everything that's going on in Detroit in terms of this EM, in terms of us losing our right to vote. And I'm really trying to balance it with the need for rapid governmental change in Detroit. That's where my real quagmire in all this comes, because I do feel the EM law is unconstitutional. I do think it takes away our right to vote, but I cannot in good conscience let Dave Bing run this city another day unchecked.
It seems like Dave Bing doesn't even want to. Dave Bing seems to be supportive of the EM. So I read him as saying we need help.
No, you read him as saying, I've given up. I've thrown my hands up. I couldn't run this thing.
Yeah,
and he was brought in here, and the last time I was on, we talked about him being brought in here by the business community to run the city of Detroit, and he didn't run it. He ran it into the ground. It got even worse, and I made the point that I don't see how anybody could do as bad a job as he's done by accident.
You think he did it on purpose?
I would hope. I would hope he did it on purpose, because if he did it by accident, he's just not a good, effective manager. But we've got another panel member with us, Ed Sarpolus. Ed, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Ed's a frequent guest on the show, founder and executive director of Targyt Insight, one of Michigan's most noted pollsters, analysts, and strategists. And I want Ed's views, Steve's views. I want to go back and forth on this issue. And here's how I want to kind of set the stage. From Ed, I want to know, to the extent you have the information, what do the polls indicate from the standpoint of what's the public sentiment in Michigan on the EM issue? And then what's your analysis and what should the strategy be? Then I'm going to flip it back to Steve to continue on with what he was saying with regard to. So the EM, where does Detroiters stand on the issue, and where do Michiganders as a whole stand? Are they in favor of the EM, or are they opposed because they think it's unconstitutional?
Well, first of all, the voters have no understanding what's happening in Detroit and why there's this push for EFM. So their response in the polls at 63% supporting EFM because they assume that Detroit can't manage itself, it's in debt, it's overspending, it's a debacle. So all they're hearing is one side of the story. Those around Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, around Detroit, it's like 78% because they're hitting the news every day. And then Detroiters, they voted like 86% against the EFM, and about right now in the polls saying 41% support the EFM. So you got to remember what polls are reflect is what people are hearing, not what they necessarily know.
So what's the Detroit poll per se? Is it now supportive or against?
It's still against by a majority, 60-40 against the EFM.
Okay, but
go ahead.
The Tri-County area, though, is in favor.
Oh, strongly in favor. It's over 70% in the Tri-County area, yes.
Steve, what's your take on that? And Ed's point is that the people don't understand, if I understand you correctly, Ed.
That is correct.
Well, the only numbers that really matter are the Detroit numbers. I mean, I love it that our suburban neighbors are...
Why do you feel that way?
Why do I feel that way? Because
I don't feel
our
that way.
suburban neighbors do not have to go home with no lights on. Our suburban neighbors do not have to look over their shoulders at panhandlers every day on their way home. They can visit our city, and they go home to nice, safe neighborhoods. We are not safe. We're not safe, and we need that rapid change that I talked about.
But you're saying you want rapid change, and you're saying they need to do something.
Well, just to understand what Steve's going at, this is very important. Right now, the city of Detroit has roughly about 2,300 cops in the community, whether they're on the street or not, whatever, okay? The state plan, that part of the consent agreement under Andy Dillon was going to drop that number down to 1,700 cops, okay? So they were going to drop the number of police to get out of debt. The FBI did a report last year, and guess what the FBI said how many cops Detroit needs? 5,000 cops. And so the reason for why Steve said, in fact, we need quick change is not only quick change to what the city council needs to do and the mayor, but also we have to decide, the state has to do something, right? Because right now, FBI is saying we need 5,000. The state says you're only going to get 1,700, and the city only has 2,300.
Well, but here's what I don't understand. I follow that point, but I want to go back to what you said, Steve, because we know each other a long time. I think it's not just what Detroiters feel. I think that Metro Detroiters also have a stake. And believe it or not, I want Detroiters to not be afraid in their homes at night. And I want to be able to come. I want a city. I want to be a part of a city that I can walk and I can visit and go to and feel safe, that people there feel safe, that there is police, fire, and support. We all want that.
But Ken, let me tell you, during opening day, your city, Detroit, was your city, Detroit. It was perfect. Almost zero crime downtown. Okay, people walking around freely. No problems, no whatsoever, in that coordinated, controlled area. And that's all most of those people are ever going to be in, are those coordinated, controlled areas. They're not coming out to where I live. They're not going out to the 48205.
We're coming up for a break, but what I want to say to you is I want the rest of the city to be good as well. I think everybody does.
You want to come hang out in the 48205?
We'll talk about it after the break.
Let's go to Chocolate City.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Don't let legal problems destroy your family or your life. Get the justice you deserve. I'm Sabrina Cronin of the Cronin Law Firm, and I'm here to make things right. My firm handles family law, business law, and even criminal law. We can handle all of your legal needs. So whatever you're facing, I'm here to get you justice. You can't afford not to call. Call 855-CRONIN-LAW today.
Do you have tax problems, unfiled returns? Facing levies on wages in your property? You need an expert, not a cartoon character or salesman. Thav Gross is your solution.
You need to look at the big picture. That's what we do. We develop a plan that's right for you.
I had major tax problems. I didn't know what to do.
We did.
We sat down together and solved your tax problem.
No more letters, no more phone calls. They saved me.
Call Thav Gross, 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Welcome back. I've got Steve Hood from Detroit Wants to Know, Ed Sarpolus from Targyt Insights with us. Before we go forward, I just want to mention a couple quick announcements. We've got seminars coming up. Once again, April 24th, May 1st. It's Your Future. It's from 6:30 to 8. The 24th is in Bingham Farms. The 1st is in Royal Oak. Goes through all the issues you need to know from the standpoint of how to leverage your finances so your money goes to you, your family, and your retirement, not to the credit card companies and to pay for second mortgages on houses that are underwater. You want to sign up, go to our websites, thavgross.com, fctalkcenter.com, call 888-235-HELP. I want to thank our sponsors, the Cronin Law Firm, Gold Star Law, Ben Johnson Law. Before we went to the break, what did you say to me, Steve? I would go down to Chocolate. What?
I said, are you going to come out to Chocolate City?
What's Chocolate City?
It's a topless bar over there on East Outer Drive.
My wife will let me out,
maybe even called 007 now. I'll give you something else you might go to. El Barzone, okay, over there on Junction. All right, when you get to El Barzone, you have secured parking. People are watching your cars. It's at Michigan and Junction. But if you make a wrong turn going to El Barzone, you will be awakened like never before. Some of the best food in the city is right there. But if you make a wrong turn going to that place,
you're done.
You can run into something that that you will not be able to handle.
All right, so let me respond back to the issue.
Even I worry about going over there.
Absolutely want that problem solved. And I want it solved for people living in the city, and I want it solved for people living outside of the city. I find that to be a critically important issue. I don't view, to me, I know several people in my family that are afraid to traverse into the city, knowing that when they get to the nice areas downtown and in Newtown that they're going to be safe and fine, Midtown. But what happens if the car breaks down on the freeway? What happens if you make a wrong turn and you get lost?
Look,
but people worry about that.
Wait a minute. They're fine if their car breaks down on the Lodge Freeway or I-75. But on 94 East or west of I-75, where the lights are out all night, they're taking their chances.
So maybe we need signs, don't let your car break down in certain areas? What I'm saying
maybe
is,
we need the lights on.
And I completely agree with you. The only point that I'm saying is it's not just, I don't think that it's just the people in Detroit whose vote matters on the issue. I think it's everybody's vote. And I think that the suburban side, the Tri-County area, is all in favor. Ed, pipe in too. They're more politically in favor of the EM than you're saying the Detroiters are. Because is it this right to vote? Is it like we're taking away rights? Is that what?
It is because, for example, you got to understand Detroiters, and as a matter of fact, I'm in Detroit practically every day. The Detroiters are fearful that the fact is there's always the business community. We want to buy your assets. We want to sell your assets. They want to have what is their own. You got to remember what's important for the Detroit vote, and Steve will agree with this. If you don't resolve that issue of Detroiters accepting this, they're going to continue to move out of the city. The reason why this lawsuit is so important is not because it's challenging the constitutionality. It's showing that somebody's fighting to keep Detroiters in the city of Detroit, that they have a chance to run their own city. And the other reason why this lawsuit is so important, the fact is it's going to force the governor to get money into the city to get rid of that E-man as soon as possible. So this lawsuit actually, Ken, is going to actually move this process quicker to get money into the city because everything else on EFM does not bring money into the city. It just restructures the debt or goes bankrupt. So actually, Detroiters voters do count because if you don't get their opinion correct, they're going to continue to leave the city. You got to convince them to stay in the city because otherwise we don't need an EFM if there's nobody in the city.
And that's a correct point. But the other reason why this lawsuit is so important is we've had African American political power in Detroit for years. All right, and there have been good elected officials over the last spate. Of officials, it hasn't been that good. They haven't moved forward. They haven't addressed the cash burn issue. They haven't addressed the OPEB issue. And that's why we're in the state we are now.
If Kevyn Orr stays on as EM and solves the problem and puts Detroit on the right track, would he be a shoo-in for being the next mayor if he wanted to be?
No.
I think he'd have a chance to be governor if he was successful.
No, I don't think he would have a chance to be mayor or governor. Let me tell you, his statement said it best. He actually expects to be the most hated person in Detroit within a short period of time. He said that when he came in. It was one of his first quotes.
It's a lonely job.
It's a lonely job. He doesn't stand a chance. We're either going to have Benny Napoleon or Mike Duggan be the next mayor. All right, unless something really big changes.
What about
That's what's
Al
gonna happen.
Sharpton leading this crusade? Do you know how that plays out to the suburban?
Well, let me tell you how it plays
out
out to me.
Yeah,
Al Sharpton can come in and he can lead a march down the steps to the federal court, yell and scream, but he's going to go back to New York. Jesse Jackson, he's going to come in and say, we need civil disobedience. We need civil disobedience. Then he's going to leave. He's going to come back and try and negotiate a peace settlement and get everything done. I say stay home. We can fight this. The people from Sugar Law Center, you had them on last week. Mr. Philo and them, they're more than capable of fighting this thing. More capable of fighting this thing. So leave the outsiders go.
The Philo group is working this pro bono. They're not even charging to deal with this lawsuit. I mean, that's the amazing thing. The fact they're actually, and many of those are white attorneys. Many white were doing this pro bono, which is very important to understand to your listening audience.
Yeah, they're a very dedicated group. They take on causes all the time,
and I think eventually
they're terrific from that regard.
Eventually they prevail on the unconstitutionality of this.
Here's what I like. The Al Sharpton thing is when I see Al Sharpton coming in there and they say voters' rights and they talk about the discrimination days and the civil rights movement, I just don't understand why this has to become a race issue. To me, it's not a race issue at all. What I have to believe, white and black, Latino and everyone else that live in this community, the Tri-County area, all are on the same page. We all want a vibrant, healthy city. Everybody wants that.
Let me tell you why it becomes
nobody's afraid of that.
Let me tell you why it becomes a race issue. An African-American city council and supposedly African-American mayor have been neutered by a Caucasian governor, and he has put in an African-American with a kid-and-play haircut.
You kind of think he neutered himself.
Oh, I think he neutered himself. It's self-castration.
Absolutely. We'll take a break. We're going to come back.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances in contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Financially strapped? Do you want to save your home?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Don't let legal problems destroy your family or your life. Get the justice you deserve. I'm Sabrina Cronin of the Cronin Law Firm, and I'm here to make things right. My firm handles family law, business law, and even criminal law. We can handle all of your legal needs. So whatever you're facing, I'm here to get you justice. You can't afford not to call. Call 855-CRONIN-LAW today.
Carrying too much debt? Dump your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
Welcome back. I've got Steve Hood from Detroit Wants to Know, Ed Sarpolus from Targyt Insight, and we're exploring this issue of the EM. Should he be removed? Shouldn't he be removed? Should he stay? What does Detroit want versus, and I think we've really kind of gotten into it today with this debate as between what does Detroit want versus what do the suburbs want. I think Ed's having a little technical issues back there. Ed, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Oh, Ed's in the studio. No wonder. Ed, we'll mic him up for the last couple of minutes of the show. Ed, welcome to the show, Ed. Nice to see you here.
Same here. My car wouldn't start this morning, so I got a little bit late.
You made it. It's good to have you. All right, so right where we're at. Okay, so everyone wants a solution. How do you see that the lawsuit is going to help the situation? And what about the protests? What about blocking the people trying to get to downtown to their jobs?
Well, I may not
is that accomplishing anything?
Well, I may not support necessarily the blocking of transportation because that's a serious problem, even though cops go along with it. The key thing, this is a political move also at the same time. I've been living in Lansing, okay? The pressure that this lawsuit is doing is forcing the Republicans saying, we want to get rid of this issue, okay? Because they don't want to do anything for Detroit. So basically, the governor is running for re-election. So keeping this in the spotlight forces the governor to make decisions and force legislature to do things that they normally just want to sweep it under the rug.
So you think the legislative sentiment in Lansing, at least among the Republicans, is they don't care about this?
They don't care about it. So this puts pressure.
What do you mean, let it go? Let the whole city go? What do they not care about?
File bankruptcy, sell the assets, and being done. So this lawsuit forces them, wait a minute, the governor wants to get reelected. So he has to make this sound good. He wants to get Detroit voters to vote for him because remember, if Detroiters turn out en masse, he can't win reelection.
Steve?
I don't know if he can win re-election without Detroit. I don't know if that's true. Let me tell you why. If we got up to 300,000 votes, maybe that would stop him. But
this is a black eye in him. If he can't resolve this issue,
sure.
Yeah. Well, no. He definitely owns it. If he fails at this, he definitely owns the issue. He definitely goes down statewide. But the other issue with this is you went to race. First of all, you've got this white guy taking the power away. That's what the governor. That's what people see on the surface. But on the other side, we need rapid change. We cannot give the power back to Dave Bing. We cannot give the power back to this current city council.
I see it this way. I mean, Bing as mayor with a city council only has so much power and authority that he can vest and do and accomplish anything. At least when you put the EM in giving him greater power, plus the threat of bankruptcy, plus the chance to go and try and negotiate with the bondholders, you need major surgery here that I don't think anyone in the just quote-unquote role of mayor could accomplish and solve Detroit's problems on his own. I think you need extraordinary measures to solve a problem of a city built for $3 million that now only has 700,000 people, of which, and such a smaller tax base. You can't fund all the things that need to be funded without help. That's why I don't blame Bing as much as you do. I blame the circumstance, but what I want is change.
Well, as a matter of fact, I agree with you, just so you understand what happened in this new law. The governor understood that some cases it was going to be unconstitutional. The labor cut a deal in this new law that's the EFM. Okay, some of the contracts are not going to be swept away under this new EM. Okay, but there's also agreement amongst labor groups working with the governor on this new law, even though they say they're against it. The fact is that our city charter doesn't allow certain things to happen that EFM can do, okay? And he might be able to work with the new city charter to block some things. They can't do some things under the new charter. They can't move quickly. So I agree with you. But the fact is that this is a marrying of minds. Labor and governor worked on this whole issue in this new law. There is some changes to make it a little bit more constitutional. But at the same time, labor will let you admit the fact there's something that the charter does not, I agree with you, Ken, that only an FM can do. Because by the time you go through the political process of a city council and charter, they can't make decisions that quickly.
I mean, I'm sitting here as an outside observer, and I will confess that I don't know the inner workings of the city. But the perception that a lot of people have out in the metropolitan community is that the Detroit City Council, in and of itself, was quite inept. It never, from a standpoint of the way the news media covers it, because I'm saying that's the only input that I have, is you never saw a team approach to getting things done. You saw a lot of fighting, and every little small issue seemed to be a major debate.
Well, let me
Is that
tell
a
you,
fair assessment or no?
That's a fair assessment. Let me tell you about a small issue that's coming up. We just argued back and forth to try and stop a 7-Eleven from coming downtown because there are already enough liquor stores downtown. We didn't want another STD license, and a 7-Eleven is a national brand. Now, a couple weeks ago, Dan Gilbert said that he wants to bring a Papa Joe's downtown, Papa Joe's Market downtown, which is a great thing. With an EM in there, it's going to go right through if he wants it. If he doesn't want a hearing, I don't think there's going to have to be a hearing, which is a really interesting concept when you're bringing businesses down. Does that mean that we'll have a Hooters in downtown Detroit?
I don't know.
You know, what
but
will
you know
we
what?
have?
The EM may make the right decision, and he may make the wrong decision. But you know how and something I think you feel the same way too. You know what I want? I want the decision to be made. I don't want it to be made in 3 months. I want it to be made in 1 week. Get the information, make the decision. Not every decision that you make ever can be the right decision. Change it afterwards. I want rapid change. That's what you want. That's what we all want. We want to see Detroit back in motion.
I think that's where Detroiters will agree with you on that particular thing. They just want to be sure that their assets are not gone. They still will have a say in the future of their city, and the fact that business doesn't take it over. That's all they care about.
And that they're safe in their homes,
Yes.
and that the garbage is picked up and taken away, and that the snow is removed, and all the things that people expect and pay for as citizens and are entitled to, that they have them. And the thing that I believe is everyone wants that for the city, but fighting about it can't possibly bring it to fruition.
Well, sir, for example, the city council, going back to the fighting, they didn't learn soon enough the fact that even though the state owes the city money, the state was never going to pay them the money that the state owes the city. So they kept that battle going and going and going. I was part of that investigation. The state owes them over $200 million. But the state is never going to pay that. Because they'd have to admit that the fact that, one, we don't have the money to give you, and number two, we don't admit that we did something we weren't supposed to do.
But the other issue with that is, if they had given us the money, the operational changes hadn't been made to keep us from burning through the money.
Correct.
That's the problem, and that's where I'm at as a
keep
citizen.
Going, but we're out of time. I want to thank Steve Hood, Ed Sarpolus for joining me on the show. The EM issue is going to be out there for a long time. Let's hope, I think all of us agree, let's try and somehow make it work so that we get Detroit back on track. That's what everybody's goal is. I thank everybody for listening, watching. We'll be back.